achieving meaningful business impact from AI and ML. So not that there's no pressure or anything like that, but I'll welcome my next guest, Heather Harris, Field Chief Data and Analytics Officer for Alteryx. I'm going to turn it over to you, Heather.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And where's the gentleman that just asked about getting out of Excel spreadsheet hell? I'm going to answer that question for you this morning. So I'm Heather Harris. I'm Alteryx's Field Chief Data and Analytics Officer. By background, I actually came from the customer side of Alteryx. I was an IT leader for Alaska Airlines. I'm a neighbor down in Seattle. And I led data science and analytics technologies across the entire airline, every department, Legacy Virgin America, Horizon Air as well, which flies up to here. I flew it up last night, so you guys know that airline as well. And so we had to get meaningful impact out of our AI, ML, and analytics. I went into global consulting from there. I led a data science and analytics service line for a global consulting firm, and I had to deliver. I had 12 projects at any one time, delivering into some of the world's best-known brands. And if I signed a statement of work and said, I'm going to get you a machine learning model in 12 weeks, I had to get you a machine learning model in 12 weeks. So I joined Alteryx a year ago. Alteryx invited me to come on and help our customers, our organizations, be successful with their analytic investments. And so that's my role today. And I get the even greater privilege of, I introduced the slide about who Alteryx is. We are an AI, ML, and analytics platform company. And these are some of our customers. And I bring this up not just to brag about who our customers are. I'm extremely proud of who our customers are, and we value them. But because we see a lot across every industry, across every department of those industries. We're in more than 8,400 companies and half of the top 2,000, nearly half of the top 2,000 companies in the world. So this talk really brings together a lot of what I've seen and a lot of what we see in terms of how do I effectively get AI and ML, first, sometimes even get it. A lot of leaders come to me and say, hey, look, we know we need to be using predictive and we're not, help us. Or how do we do it effectively? I came from a data science background myself. I was an electrical engineer out of college. I designed computer chips, which is like some of the original big data and statistical analysis. We didn't call it big data and data science at the time, but then pivoted into data science through a mid-career master's program. So how do people get started talking about this? It comes from analytic maturity. And the Institute of International Analytics went out and surveyed over 1,000 companies. And they said, we're going to give you a scale of 1 to 5, because data people love scales. Likert scales is the fancy name for these. And a 1 is a company that's not doing anything with data yet, or much. They're not really data-driven. A 2 is a company that they're doing quite a bit of analytics, but it's on a department-by-department basis. A 3 is when a company says, hey, look, we have data across our organization, and we need to bring it together and do something more holistic with it. A 4 is when a company gets to that point, and a 5 are our digital natives. Shout them out. Who are some of the digital natives that you might think of? Don't be shy. Oh, come on, this room is way too quiet. And I don't know any of your names, so I can't pick on any of you. Okay, so right, Google, Meta, Facebook, Amazon. These are all companies that when I was doing my graduate studies in data science, I had to read seminal papers by these companies about some of how they shifted things into more modern data science methods, which now, that was more than 10 years ago. I don't think we would say those are modern anymore. Everyone's talking about large language models, which, spoiler alert, that's only one model and tool in my toolbox as a data scientist. There's a lot more to the world than ChatGPT and large language models. Analytic maturity for a company really centers around 7 different things. I'm not going to dive deep into these, but it's about your data, but it's about your organization too, about your culture. How are you organizing your teams? How do you align within your organization? As an IT leader, we often talk about people, excuse me, processes and technologies. I can bring in the best technology in the world, but I also need to care and nurture my people around that change, as well as processes as well. And by the way, we have on our website a smaller version of that IIA survey that you can do for yourself. It takes about 15, 20 minutes, and it will give you a 1 to 5 score. And sometimes my customers, my leaders come to me and say, hey, look, we're at this score, help us get to this score. And that includes like moving the needle into AI and ML and getting the most out of it. So let's think about what industries are strongest and weakest. I don't know if you can read this eye chart from where you are. Obviously, our digital natives are up high, but you might find your industry in here. And again, you can go to our website and get more of these findings. But perhaps you see, CPG rates up high, whereas insurance and healthcare providers might be low. Although I will say, I was at a healthcare provider in Dallas, Texas yesterday that are doing amazing things with data to improve doctor experience, patient experience, maternal, newborn outcomes, all kinds of amazing things they were doing with data. But why? Why do we even care about increasing analytic maturity? Well, for business-minded folks in the room, it's because there's real, tangible financial benefits to it. If you look at the third bar chart in the middle there, and again, I'm not sure if you can see it from those of you in the back, but the third chart, what it shows is that orange bar are companies that have gotten to that 4 to 5 stage. That's the orange bar. The dark blue are companies that are still in that 2 to 3 stage. And over a 10-year period, this same survey found that those companies that move the needle have 6x revenue over a 10-year period. And there's other compelling financial reasons. And again, I think you guys will get a copy of these slides, and you'll be able to go to these findings and look at that for yourself. But it's a good place to start the conversation, even as I say, okay, I want to tap into AI and ML more, or I want to get more out of them, like think more holistically about your whole ecosystem, because it all plays into increasing analytic maturity, with moving the needle into predictive being one of those pieces. And what we also know, and this is a Forbes survey, is that really most, if not all, companies are investing somehow in AI and big data. But the reality is that only a quarter of those companies feel like they're data-driven. And this gets back to the question of the gentleman of how do we get people out of Excel spreadsheet hell and start using the technologies and the data that we've invested in. And here's what we see, and this may be familiar to some of you. In most organizations, you have what I'll call classically trained data talent. Maybe they're classically trained data scientists, like the gentleman up on stage, like myself even, or data analyst, and that's their role for your organization, is doing data things. But what's happening in the world is the rest of your business, your knowledge workers, are increasingly expected to come to every meeting, every decision with data. And it's just too much. There's just too many requests of the blue team to make any meaningful gains. The guy before me said, yeah, we work our data scientists to death. And we see this so commonly, and there's just not enough of that talent to go around. So the thing is, we need to equip the green side. And by the way, Harvard Business Review went out and surveyed companies with this model, and guess what? Nobody is satisfied with it. The blue side isn't satisfied because things are happening like, hey, love that dashboard you built for us. Do you think you could change the blue to match our company logo? So many people laughed just now. I see the shaking of the heads. And data scientists do not want to be changing colors on dashboards. They want to help you solve your most pressing problems. So we'll always need our data scientists, but we want them to do what they're trained to do and not do things like change colors on dashboards or add one more column to the dashboard. So we need to better equip the green side to be able to get a lot of those ad hoc business questions answered for themselves. And so, yes, I am with Alteryx, and I am going to talk about how the Alteryx platform approaches that. And it's not just about the technology, it's about the people. And so we've taken a persona-driven approach, and we've looked across the enterprise, and we say, yes, we have these IT folks and these data engineering folks and data scientists. They know how to code, and they know how to do really amazing things with data, and we want to equip them and empower them and make it easy for them to do those things. But we also want to equip and empower our business users. We want them to be able to put a data set into the platform and have it use AI under the hood to go through that data set and report really a majority of what most dashboards are built for. We know what most dashboards are built for. We see it every day. So why not just go ahead and take a data set and create all that insight, all that correlation analysis, all that root cause analysis, and reveal those insights to a business user in natural language with simple, easy-to-use plots that they're going to ask for on a dashboard anyway. And so why not just do that automatically? So that's kind of the spectrum to help everyone across the organization answer questions. And you can see in the platform, we do have very sophisticated machine learning and AI, natural language processing, optical character recognition, computer vision, all those kinds of things, in addition to the basic, like, hey, can you filter out this data? Can you prep and blend these data sets together? So we see, you can see the AI ML capabilities are pretty diverse. And so that's our answer to how do I equip more people in my organization without burning out my data scientist? So we had a global consulting firm go on this journey with us, and they said, okay, we're going to equip our firm with the technology. And this is a huge firm, so not everybody is going to be this size or go on the same exact journey, but the point of this slide is to say this, it is a journey. And so one of the questions earlier was like, how do we get there? So first of all, you have to decide that you want to get there, and you have to put some intention into it, and I'm going to talk about what are some of the things you can do to put intention into your journey. But the key thing I like, this slide emphasizes in the blue the financial rewards and results of increasing analytic maturity. And you can see this organization in May of 2018, they had 100 Alteryx automation processes for analytics. So what that equates to might be 10 users. It's really easy for a user to build 10 workflows, 10 automated processes from their Excel spreadsheet hell. By the end of the year, so 6 months later, they had 1,000 running. So a logarithmic difference. But by the end of the year, they had intentionally trained 4,000 folks, 25,000 installations to really equip and empower their knowledge workers. And the best outcome to me as a people leader from this is that the employee satisfaction. They felt like they could do things with new technologies. They felt like they had digital skills. I was in with, if you guys know CBRE, big real estate firm, I was in with one of their leaders a few weeks ago doing an event, and he said, I actually had to get Alteryx because my people were leaving. They refused to do Excel spreadsheet hell anymore, and they said they're going to leave. They're going to go to companies that have better technology if we don't get some. So he had to do it because he had an attrition problem. It really does make a difference, and folks who are coming out of school, they don't have an appetite anymore to do manual processes. They know the world doesn't work that way. I was in another dinner at the New York Stock Exchange last month, and 2 data scientists said to me, we don't want to code anymore. This is what we're using ChatGPT for to do our Python coding. Like, we're done with coding. And I found this interesting because when we first brought Alteryx into the airline, I'm a data scientist, so my first reaction was, it's a drag and drop tool for those of you who don't know the tool. It lets you drag and drop things that you might do in SQL or Python code without having to code. And I was like, oh, this is so cute. But I'm a Python coder. I use Jupyter notebooks, but this will be really good for them. What I found quickly was that it expedited processes, and it actually expedited me getting machine learning models into production quickly because I had a server that was part of the Alteryx platform that was a protected IT asset, and I had APIs in and out, And so I could easily build a full pipeline for a productionized machine learning model. Now, the reality is, you guys heard that stat earlier, something like 90% of models don't make it to production. Well, as a data science leader, let me tell you a little secret. Some of it's because maybe 90% of machine learning models don't need to make it to production. Most of my machine learning models that I've delivered actually are revealing insights that end up on PowerPoint slides, because that's all that's needed from the model. It doesn't need to be operationalized to make decisions every day in real time with live data. And that's actually the reality for most machine learning models that a lot of people don't realize. And so they get sucked into this hype that you have to be able to productionize them. So I just wanted to share that with you. But how does the individual go on this journey? So again, to answer the gentleman's question over here about how do I help people go on this journey, here's an example. And it has to do with coming up with pricing. It was fair pricing at the airline, but most businesses have some kind of pricing they have to do so it'll be relatable. So this analyst, she was coming up with pricing for Alaska Airlines flights, and it was an Excel spreadsheet held process, and it took her 1.5 to 2 weeks to do this process every time she had to do it. So she couldn't do it as regularly as she wanted to. We couldn't update our fare structures as much as we wanted to because it was such a manual, timely process. But by bringing these Excel spreadsheets into a technology that could easily prep and blend them together and make that a push-button process, she could eliminate that 1.5 to 2 weeks of work of all that prep and blend. Now, for most organizations, this is a huge success in and of itself, and they're satisfied there, and they stop because they don't realize there's actually so much more. What happened with her was because she could schedule this job in an automated way and be hands-off from it, she automated it and no longer actually had to do that task. This scares a lot of people when they think about going on the journey because they're afraid they're going to lose their job. The reality is I have yet to see anyone lose their job over these kinds of automation. I've seen their jobs get better because a lot of these people are highly trained and domain experts, and they'd rather be using their domain expertise than doing manual cut and paste across spreadsheets. In this particular gal's example, what she could do is she had been wanting to get to working on fare structures with our partner airlines, and so she was able to now spend time on that and do true analysis with our data, true analytics with data and with her domain knowledge. And so she actually opened up a new $7 million a year revenue channel for the airline. Just one person with time on her hands. So no, we did not fire her because she didn't have anything to do. She's actually still a leader at the airline now. But the real sweet spot when you go on this journey is true transformation. This fundamentally changed the way we did business with that other airline. That's true transformation, true process re-engineering. And that's the art of possible when you go on this journey getting people out of Excel spreadsheet hell. So this is the art of possible. It shows how there's analytic process automations really available across every department of an organization. And this is just showing the ones that we see most commonly, because a lot of times our customers come to us and they say, hey, help us figure out how to get started, just like the gentleman did over here, like, hey, how do we get started? How do we get out of this grind? So that's a way to do it, is blueprinting and workshopping. Another thing I commonly hear is people say, we just want a single source of the truth. Anyone hear this? Does this resonate? Yeah, it resonates usually with a lot of people. And the way this goes is I'm in a room, and my colleague Scott, somewhere in the room, Scott and I have to report on something. And we have to report country by country. I have to report what were our sales week over week for every country, and he has to report what was the volume of parts sold week over week for every country. So we're kind of tapping into the same data, but we're just slicing a different metric out of it. So we get into the room, our boss is there, and it's really weird. We have different answers, and we use the same data. And of course, the first instinct is, oh my goodness, this data is bad. And the IT people cringe because they're like, no, your data is not bad, but that is the first place we tend to blame, is that the data is bad. Well, what really happened is Scott is an aspiring politician in the US, although he lives here in Canada, so maybe I should be the aspiring politician in the US. And so I say, well, you know what? The United States recognizes 195 sovereign states, so that's how I reported my countries. I reported 195. But Scott's a huge football, soccer fan, and so he reported 211 countries because that's his view of the world. There's 211 countries in the world. And further, even for the countries that we both reported, my weekly numbers were different than his. Oh, it was because Scott reported his weeks Sunday to Saturday, and I did Monday to Sunday. So it had nothing to do with bad data. It had to do with how we were asking the question and what we were doing with the data. And that's what we need to be thinking about, even as we move into AI and ML. How are we asking the questions? And at the heart of successful companies that we see that have been successful moving in to AI and ML and actually getting impact and business value is this idea of the COE squared. It combines the best of what's been a traditional center of excellence, and that's your trusted advisor, building solutions, data governance, and then there's a new term for a lot of people in the room, analytic governance. Have you thought about governing your analytic processes, especially those that might have regulatory or compliance impact? Do you know what your people are doing in their data? Do you know what they're doing in their Excel spreadsheets to drive your business, to make decisions? So this is becoming a reality more and more as folks democratize data, democratize analytics, those fancy terms we hear in the marketplace, is they're also recognizing we need to govern them, and that's okay. And so it's something that especially our big financial institutions, this is really important for them. But alongside that center of excellence kind of traditional stuff is this idea of a center of enablement, taking people on the journey, training them, equipping them, enabling them, letting them know where are the best data sources. And spoiler alert, if you do really good analytic governance and you know what people are doing with analytics because you have visibility into it and you see the data they're using, which by the way you can even see on their desktop what they're doing with good governance, then you can see what data they're using. And this accelerates your data governance efforts as well. So they go hand in hand. The other thing I talk about, when you go on this AI and ML journey, begin with the end in mind. I have so many analysts and data scientists who they're so enamored, and rightly so, with the technical solution that they lose sight of, did they actually generate some new revenue? Did they protect revenue? Did they open up a new market that wasn't possible before, or a new business process? Did they reduce risk for the organization or ensure compliance? I was in with a hot beverage company down in Seattle, and they have to audit their gift cards annually. And if that annual audit is okay, end of story, everything's good. But if it's not okay, they have to go back something like 7 to 10 years. So there's huge impacts to getting it right. And the same thing with our machine learning models. Is it technically, and the gentleman before me said this too, and he said it really well, talking about it might be the most technically best model there is, but if it's not explainable, if I can't use it effectively in my business, then that may not be the best model overall for my business outcomes. And so it's thinking about the business as well. And so as people say, how do I get started on this AI and ML journey? One of the places I point people is to, what are you doing today reporting historically? Because guess what? If you've gotten that data together to do those historical reports, you're all ready to start sending it to machine learning and say, predict for me what might happen in the future for that same data. The other thing I like to tell people, this is really important. This was important for me as a data science leader as I delivered to some of the world's best known brands. I treated my AI ML models as products. And how that changed my mindset was, I worked with my stakeholders every step of the way to make sure that the product I was delivering, and I developed a framework to help engage people in that data science process every step of the way, to make sure that when my 12 weeks was done and my model was delivered, it was the right model. And this is leveraging the ideas of design methods and design thinking and even agile design methodology and bringing these ideas into your data science processes, your AI and ML development and delivery processes is really what's going to help you. Here's a way to remember this. How many of you have walked up to the door like I see here? I saw this in Costa Rica earlier this year, and that handle on that door said pull. But there was a sign that said push. And it comes down to good design. That's called a Norman door. It's got a name. Don Norman wrote a book called The Design of Everyday Things. And I think there's a lot for us to learn about that with how we do AI and ML development. So as you go on that journey or continue on that journey, think about these things as products and what are the impacts, and do that early and often. As you're doing your mundane tasks of profiling your data, bring your stakeholders in so they can see it. And if you want, come connect with me at my booth later, and I'll share with you some more about that. But that's like a really key takeaway here that has helped me be successful in delivering. Recognize that as you go on this journey, there's change management involved. And think about the different things that you're doing to excite and engage people, to enable and train them. And most importantly, I think, is have a plan for supporting and sustaining this. It's easy to get excited and bring in new technologies, but how am I going to do this for the long haul and get business value out of it? Here's 15 activities that you can do in your companies today around your AI, ML, and analytics efforts to help your people be successful, to help your organization be successful. If you drop me into any company as CDAO and say, Heather, your job is to increase analytic maturity and get the most out of AI and ML in this company, you bet I'm going to do all 15 of these things, and I'm going to do them in a systemic way. They're going to be part of my quarterly milestones. They're going to be part of my roadmap. They're going to be things I intentionally do because, by the way, these are the things that help me with the friction of change management, too, and that's really important for success. In Analytics Day is one of the key things that you can do in an organization. It encompasses about 7 of those activities. Analytics Days are not just for your developers, but it's also for your leaders and for your executives. And we see that to be most effective, organizations ask us to help them train their leaders. Help my leaders understand what AI and ML are. Help them understand how to get the most out of analytics. So the key takeaway here is as you go on this journey and you think about increasing AI and ML, remember that this data journey is for everyone in your organization. Bring up everyone and you'll bring up your data science and AI ML efforts as well. So I know I went over 2 minutes. I see I'm like gonna get kicked off the stage here, but thank you so much. And feel free to come see me in the Alteryx booth if you have any more questions.
There's no hook. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
We got time
as well.
for one quick question because I just want to make sure,
Sure.
and then
As
you're
long
going to
as
be
you-
you're going to be around for this morning so people can.
I will. I'll be back at the Alteryx booth in the
Oh,
next
great.
room over.
One quick question. Anybody got there, or do you want to just? Yep. Get the mic over
There's
there.
one right there.
Great to see you again, by the way.
Yes, it's great to see
Was
you.
watching you going, I know this lady. Okay.
Yeah, so there's a lot of content that's questions that actually pretty much everything. So if I were to ask you nowadays, what would you say to an aspiring data scientist? What is the core skills that you focus on? So I think the back end is a lot of learning code and biology algorithms. Nowadays, you have a lot of drag and drop. You have
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of assistive technologies, right? We even have one that takes somebody through their first data science. It explains the whole process. Like, they don't have to really know anything about data science. I was actually very skeptical as a data scientist of this kind of technology, and it's really come a long way since I originally started engaging with it. But I think you did answer the question the same way I would, and that is, and I think I emphasized it in my talk, is marrying business outcomes with data science, AI, ML initiatives. What is the business problem I'm trying to solve? And be really clear about what that is, and how will I know I solved it? What are my metrics around that? If I have a model that predicts when somebody's gonna bail off my website to call the call center, which I built for T-Mobile, how am I gonna measure the success? Did I reduce my call center calls by 30% and save millions of dollars? That's a pretty good metric for success. And those are the kind of things we wanna think about. It is really hard for the technical folks to think about these things. So you really need to find a way to bridge that in your organizations. Find those people who can talk both sides of the talk, even if it's one person, to help you marry that and make sure that you're doing that. Because that's really the critical thing. Begin with the end in mind of organizational outcomes.
Yeah, good stuff.
Thank you. Thank you
Heather,
for having
thank you.
me on
I'll
the
drop by and say
stage.
hi.
Okay,
Nice to see you
appreciate
again.
it.
All right, we get our panel up in here so we can get moving. We're running a little behind, but don't panic, because we'll catch it up as we go through. I have a plan. So get